Hey everyone, Melody here. Today's video is brought to you by caffeine and sheer determination because I am T-I-R-E-D, tired. This video is dedicated to those of you that wanted to know more about having a clean home and homeschooling, and we're going to talk about starting with a clean slate. Hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and follow along as we come out with new content about homeschooling, blended family life, parenthood, all that fun stuff. Quick life update before we continue. So, not that you wanted to know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Last night, we had a dog situation. We have 4 dogs. Our biggest dog attacked our littlest dog, so we ended up at the vet. It was like a whole 6-hour ordeal. Our little dog had 15 stitches. She's okay, thank goodness. But living rurally, we live rurally. We live out in the boondocks, yo.
Say it again.
Don Diego said, don't do it. She's like, Anyway, we live way the heck away from anything significant. And so we had to drive quite a ways to get to the vet, and it was after hours. And anyway, we were home late. So we got to bed at about 11, which I know is not super late necessarily for other people, but it's late for us. And then we live in Washington State, if you didn't already know. And if you weren't aware, pretty much the west side of the nation is on fire. And so it's fire season out here. Everything is dry. The smoke's been horrible. I'm clearing up now. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm like super scratchy and coughing. Everyone thinks I have COVID, but really it's just excessive smoke inhalation from the hazardous air quality. And so we finally get to sleep at 11 o'clock, and at like 1 in the morning, what do we have? Light and no rain. So I was in a little bit of a panic. Then I couldn't sleep. So I've been up essentially since 2 o'clock this morning. I'm working on 3 hours of sleep, thus the caffeine being necessary, and I'm not entirely sure what I'm saying half the time. But starting with a clean slate. If you want to have a clean home and homeschool, you can totally do it. And today we're gonna go over 5 tips on how to accomplish that and kind of just setting it up. So I'll do another video with more details step by step, but these are your 5 steps on how to start with a clean slate if you're wanting to have a cleaner home. Actually, before I say that, I just wanted to say a few disclaimers here. Number 1, I don't care if your home's clean or not. I am not here to tell you what your home should look like. If you like being surrounded by your things, be surrounded by your things. It doesn't matter what I have to say. It doesn't matter what your mother-in-law has to say. It doesn't matter what your neighbor has to say. It's your house. Be comfortable in your home. No judgment here. If you're wanting to develop some new habits to help you have a cleaner home, then I'm sharing some habits that might work for you. If they work for you, great. If they don't, ditch them. Do something that works for you. Don't stress about it. It's really not that big of a deal. If you're really into having a lot of stuff, you're going to make your job a lot harder. We're not minimalists by any means, but we definitely don't keep things. I don't call myself a minimalist, but I do tell people I'm not a keeper of things. So it makes it easier. Number 1, your first problem is too much stuff. If you have too much stuff, then keeping a clean home is going to be like walking uphill in a mudslide. It's not going to be a pleasant experience for you. It's not going to be a pleasant experience for your kids. It's going to be super stressful, and that's not for what we're going. That's not what we're going for here. So, your number 1 step to getting that clean slate is get rid of the crap. And by crap, I mean anything you designate as crap. If you want to have your great-grandmother's china set and your Aunt Beatrice's, I don't know, paintings that she did in high school, and I don't know, what you want? Trinkets? What do you want? If you want all those things, have them. It's not crap if you love it. But if you have too much stuff, it's going to make it harder. So set aside some time to get rid of some things. And I can guarantee you, even in a minimalist household, there are always things to get rid of. Now, this first step takes a lot of time, potentially, especially if you're coming at it from scratch and having not taken the time to do it before. But I suggest that you go room by room and set aside the time to go through each room and then make 3 piles. You've got your pile of stuff that you just don't need. You've got your pile of stuff that you absolutely want to keep. And then you're going to come across a bunch of stuff that not only do you not need, but you'll discover it's garbage. So like you literally just need to throw it away. Just throw it away. Let it go. If you have a really hard time with that, what I suggest you do is keep out all the stuff that you use regularly. Anything that you don't use regularly, or you can't remember the last time you used it, or you have it sitting around because you're one of those people and you're like, oh, but someday I might need this. If you're that person, take it, get a bin, put it in a bin, label it, and if 6 months from now you haven't touched anything in that bin and you haven't opened it or needed anything in it, get rid of the bin. That simple. But it's not as hard as when you're first looking through it, feeling sentimental, and you're like, oh, but I remember when I had this and it reminded me of this time, but I don't really need it. Put it in the bin. Wait 6 months. If you don't miss it, you don't need it. So get rid of it. Once you've separated your piles, you've got your trash, you've got your, I'm giving it to the Goodwill, or I'm putting it in a bin to review in 6 months, or whatever, and then you have your stuff that you actually want to keep in your house, we're going to move to step number 2. Have you ever heard a place for everything and everything in its place? Well, I know it's super cliche, but I say that in my head all the time. Number 2 is have a place for everything. If you don't have a place for it, make a place for it. If you can't make a place for it and you don't have a place for it, then go back to number 1, you probably don't need it. And I say this as somebody who has lived in both a fairly large house. We have a fairly large house now. We have lots of space and I love it, and it definitely makes it easier to have that extra space. But I've also lived in a teeny tiny little yurt, actually. I don't know if you know what that is. Look it up if you don't. Find a place for everything. You can do it. Number 3 is the second part of that. Everything in its place. If you have children that have a hard time remembering where the places are, label it. I know it seems silly, but it will save you a lot of headache and a lot of cleaning up after the kids. If they're really little, label it with pictures so they can see where things go. So at this point, you have trimmed down what you've got. You have created a place for everything, so there's somewhere for things to go. And now you have made sure that all those items are in their place and labeled it if necessary, if that helps you or your kiddo remember where things go. Number 4, it's the 2-to-1 rule. If you have a ton of stuff, even after you've gone through and you've cut down on your overall load of stuff, if you still feel like you have way too much stuff, use the 2-to-1 rule. And that is, give away 2 items for every new item that you bring in. This works great for clothes. This works great for toys. This works great for office supplies, even though if you're a homeschooler, you probably really like office and craft supplies. But chances are you have a cupboard full of stuff that you don't use. Or if you feel like I'm good with this, I have just the right amount of stuff, but you're still gonna go shopping and you're gonna bring new things in, because it's what we do. Use the 1-to-1 rule. For every new thing you bring in, put 1 thing out. For our household, what I like to do is kind of have a regular Goodwill box. I have a Goodwill box that sits in my laundry room, and I just add things to it as I come across them. And occasionally I'll have the kids go through the room and I'm like, all right, I want items from the Goodwill bin. When we were really trying to minimize how much stuff we had, I would go through and I would be like, okay, once a week you need to pick 1 item to add to the Goodwill box or something like that. And we would just keep doing that. And it's amazing with 6 people in the house how quickly that adds up. And it's stuff they don't even miss. They never wanted it. They don't touch it. It's just taking up space. And it makes cleaning a lot easier because you have less to pick up. Okay. Number 5, last but not least, it is kind of connected to number 3, but storage space. Create storage space, whether that is with bins, with cabinets, closets, the garage, whatever you have to do. Make an investment and buy some really good plastic containers. Get some bins. Do yourself a favor and do the bins that like they're not see-through. You don't want glass cabinets. You want something to where you can have a clean mess, if that makes any sense. So you have your bin and your kid has their bin. We don't care what the bin looks like on the inside because we're not going to look at the inside. We're just going to make sure that your kiddo knows what goes in the bin and they put it in there. And then once a week or once a month or whatever you need, you have your kiddo go through their bin and clean it up. And it's going to get messy and it's okay, but we don't care because it's in the bin or we cannot see on the inside. That's the key. Out of sight, out of mind. It's a thing. Again, it doesn't matter if you have a bigger house or a smaller house, you can make space for all the things you need. That's it. Number one, if you have too much stuff, I guarantee you have too much stuff. So make cleaning out your stuff a habit, divide it in those 3 piles, get rid of the trash, pass on the stuff you don't use anymore. A place for everything. Number 2, and number 3, everything in its place. It's a real thing. Label it if you need to. Number 4, the 2-to-1 or the 1-to-1 rule, depending on how much stuff you have. Number 5, storage space, bins, cabinets, closets, garage space, whatever you need. Make sure that you have storage space for things. Because if you have space to store things, it's a lot easier to keep things cleaned up. Now, there's of course a lot more to this than just these 5 steps. Because you could do these 5 things and then your kids come into the house and 5 minutes later it's and all your efforts feel like they're gone. And so we're going to talk more about that in another video. Follow along, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, hit the little bell, ding, so you know when to check us out. And we'll go into more detail about how to get the kids involved and how to have a clean, happy homeschooling home. I would like to say as a caveat, if you want a clean space, you can have a clean space. But I really dislike when people say, well, if it's a priority, you'll make it happen. Because as moms, we know it's a priority for our kids to eat healthy. So we want to make from scratch meals. And it's a priority for us to exercise every day. And it's a priority to practice self-care and get up and fix our hair and do our makeup if we want to and dress nice. And it's a priority to have a clean home. And it's a priority to volunteer in our community. And it's a priority to read books. And it's a priority to plan lessons. And there are so many priorities. And you will bury yourself in priorities, particularly in other people's priorities, if you can't decide what's most important to you and just let the rest go. Because unless you need a whole lot less sleep than this mama, at some point you're gonna crack if you try and make everything a priority. So choose the things that are most important to you. If it's a clean house, then here are some steps that can make it easier for you. If that doesn't make the top of your priority list, let it go. Do what you can when you can, clean up a little as you go, and if you're happy in your space, you win. No big deal. All right, so thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening to me babble on real quick. We'll have another video for you guys next week on Thursday, as always, and I don't know what we'll be talking about yet, but whether it's the clean spaces or curriculum or planning for the next homeschool year, I look forward to chatting with you guys next week. Please leave a comment in the box below if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, anything like that. I love your guys' feedback. I'm super excited to grow this channel and to build this community. Like I said, check us out on Instagram, and I will catch you later. Cool. What's in the picture? My bun! Boop, boop. I don't have COVID, people. It's the smoke. Nobody panic. Props to my props. We're gonna talk about... Shit, I just drew a blank. Oh yeah. Okay. And then God said, let there be coffee.